It means a lot. It's great for me, and I hope they got a lot out of it.
You see the energy and just excitement on their faces.
It warms your heart. It does more for us than it does for them.
It's just put a lot of love in your heart. It makes everything worth it.
It's still awesome to be able to put a smile on their face.
Ho, 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 Merry Christmas.
It's a wonderful time of the year. Welcome to Cowboys Insider inside the Academy Sports and Outdoor Studios here at the Star in Frisco, Texas. I'm Bill Jones along with Nate Newton, Rick Goslin, and Dave Campo. Yes, the Cowboys looking for 12 wins in a row now. Sunday night at the Meadowlands against the New York Giants. We look ahead to that game, look back a little bit at last week's win over the Vikings as well. And yes, the holiday visits to the hospitals started this week off. It was a 5-day break for this team after the win over Minnesota. Got back to work here on Wednesday. Let's start with our opening statements. And as usual, we start with the former head coach of the Cowboys, Dave Campo.
Well, guys, I'm excited about the fact that they're playing the Giants and coming off a break and all that stuff. But Cowboy fans, don't be fooled because Pierre-Paul got hurt. They've got some good defensive players down there besides him. And this is going to be a heck of a ball game with a playoff atmosphere.
First of all, I want to say hats off to the players, the coaching staff. I think me and Coach probably went 7 or 8 games before we broke our streak. These guys are on a tremendous streak, and don't let this last game fool you. I mean, it scared them to death, and they got to stay focused.
Yeah, pay attention to these next 3 weeks. Giants, Bucks, Lions. There's a good chance the Cowboys could be playing 2 of these teams in January.
Yep, and wow, 11-game win streak. It's only happened one time in the history of this franchise, and it was over multiple seasons back in the 70s that a Cowboys team won 11 straight games, so they could set an all-time record, even over multiple seasons on Sunday night. How big a game is this for the Cowboys? Well, one check of the NFC East standings. It was a very nice mini-bye weekend for the Cowboys as the rest of the East all lost last weekend. It's a 3-game lead over the Giants, and yes, they are playing for a division championship on Sunday night against the Giants. But there are things to correct. If you just look back at that Minnesota game, start with the penalties. Nate, they could clean up some penalties.
Oh, definitely. You had a 42-yard run. We got a little holding penalty. Then we had another big player interception that you see right there, Doug Free. I mean, it was ticky-tack, but it was a call. It wiped out a chance to go in and score. Right here you see Hitchens get an interception, Coach. It was called back because of what happened here with Scandrick. I don't know if he even committed the penalty, but you have to clean up those things. And with a long streak like this, Coach, 11 wins, you can get a little sloppy.
You got to be careful with the penalties because, one thing, Jason made a big deal this week, which was right about the fight and fighting through a bad game. But remember, when you win, it's fight. Yeah. When you lose because of it, you're just a sloppy football team. So you got to make sure you clean those things up going forward here. This is going to be playoffs for the rest of the year. The guys we're playing are all fighting for playoffs and divisions. So this is going to be good for us.
Yep, and not only the penalties, but they also survived some fumbles as well in Minnesota.
Yeah, if you don't turn the ball over, you're not going to beat yourself. And the Cowboys have done a great job all season of not turning the ball over. Dak does not throw interceptions. The one area they have to clean up, Dak has been loose with the football. He's had 4 fumbles, and he's got to be aware in the pocket of the slaps coming through the pass rushes, and also secure those center snaps.
Takeaways can be, as we all know, are such a huge thing, but especially down the stretch.
Yeah, you have to make sure you take care of business there. And the one thing about Dak, I think, Goose, is that he has so much confidence in his offensive line right now, Nate, right? That at times he'll hold on the ball too long because he feels like somebody's going to get open. I've got my time. And he has good pocket awareness as far as running. Right. But every once in a while, a guy comes in there and slaps the ball out.
Everything now from this point on, it's one game. And I know Coach is preaching that, but understand, for most teams that we're playing, like Rick said earlier, these guys are trying to position themselves for a better spot, having an open week, playing a game at home. So everybody's getting after you. And if they see a weakness, it's going to be like alligators, and it's going to be everybody after you.
All right, we're just getting started here on Cowboys Insider. Much more on the Cowboys-Giants coming up on Sunday night. And how about that Zeke Elliott? Yes, we saw him the first time against the Giants. How much has he improved since week 1 of this season? Next.
Cowboys Insider, presented by Baylor Scott & White, is brought to you by Academy Sports and Outdoors, the official sporting goods retailer of the Dallas Cowboys. AT&T, mobilizing your world. And by Baylor Scott & White. We're changing healthcare for life. This segment is brought to you by the Dallas Morning News. Nobody does sports like Sports Day. Your home for complete Dallas Cowboys coverage.
12 seconds left, third down, back to throw. Throws it out right. Caught, get out of bounds! To the 40-yard line, it's in the field of play.
It's like a bang-bang moment, and now that I have a chance to just sit back and think on it, I just went out of bounds.
Wow, that seems so long ago now. That was week 1 of the season back on September 11th. And no, Terrence Williams did not get out of bounds as he was admonished by Brad Sham on the Cowboys Radio Network. I'm Bill Jones with Nate Newton, Rick Goslin, and Dave Campo. And welcome back here to Cowboys Insider. Second meeting of the year with the New York Giants from inside the Academy Sports and Outdoor Studios here at the Star. Zeke Elliott, a different player after week 1 and week 2 of this season. And how different? Well, in week 1 against the Giants, he had 51 yards, averaged 2.6 yards a carry. Since week 1, he's averaging 112 yards a game, nearly twice the yards per attempt at 5.1 yards per attempt. Yes, Zeke is a little different. The running game's a little different. Let's start with Nate, the big offensive lineman here. Why is it so different?
It's so different now because Scott Linehan understands how this kid runs, and more importantly, he has slowed down tremendously. When you saw that first game, they tried to get physical with him. He just started slamming it up in there, and he was only getting 2.6. Now he's flowing with the offense, and his guards and centers are doing a great job, and he's flowing, and, Coach, he's rolling.
Well, you know, Nate is absolutely right from the standpoint that the coaches had a big part of this because it really is 2 things. Number one, they backed him up a little bit to slow him down, give him a chance to look and see what's out there. But Nate said it from the very beginning about the fact that he has to understand how his linemen block. He's got to know where his reads are, who to look at first. All those things come into play, and they've just gotten better, Goose, as they've gone on.
Yeah, Bill, I think 2 things. One, he didn't really have a training camp. You know, he never got a feel for the blocking scheme and where things go. And secondly, at Ohio State, the holes were so huge. It was just take the ball and get through the hole and go because you're going to go 60 yards. The holes are not as big in the NFL. They close faster. And I think it took him that game to figure out that, you know, I can't just run straight ahead. I got to have some feel here and let the blocking create a hole for me.
I have a feeling at Burroughs High School in St. Louis, the holes are pretty big as well. You know, one of the amazing stats I saw this week about Zeke, going back to high school, not only high school, but in college and now here in the NFL, he is unbeaten on the road. True road games, he has not lost. Yes, Zeke will travel, but this is a different test against this Giants team. You got to give credit as well to the Giants' run defense because it's pretty stout.
When you get in the middle with Hankerson and Harrison, these are 2 lows. These guys here remind me back in the day, Coach, when we used to play. We just had big guys up there just trying to clog up things, but we got a front 3 in our centers and guards that can move people. And I think if we hit them from the side with different angles and make them run, they exhaust themselves because I see a little weight around the middle gaining for them.
Well, we have to take the approach that we're going to stick with it one way or another. But you look up there, you know, they're second in yards per rush and yards per game. They're high ranked. And, you know, you just got to stay with it. Keep trying to punish them, get the play action pass because, guys, we have to stay out of third down against these guys, 3rd and long.
Yeah, give the Giants credit. They invested in that defensive front. They paid big money to get Harrison there, big money to get Vernier. They got Jason Pierre-Paul. This is a good defensive front. I thought in that first game, that's the only time all season that the Cowboys line was not dominant. I thought the Giants defensive line controlled the Cowboys blocking front. Elliott had his worst game. Dak had 227 yards, no touchdowns. That was basically two of the worst games these 2 rookies have played. And I think a big part of that was that Giants front.
And you know, they really have the best of both. You know, now with Paul hurt, that might change things a little bit, but they have the best of both worlds. They got 2 big loads inside, and they got speed off the edge. So it's not going to be an easy one attacking that defense.
All right, on the other side of the ball, they've got Odell Beckham Jr., king of the tirade so far in his NFL career. We discuss that and more when Cowboys Insider continues in a moment.
This segment was brought to you by the Dallas Morning News. Nobody does sports like Sports Day. your home for complete Dallas Cowboys coverage. This segment is brought to you by DraftKings. Play for free today at DraftKings.com, America's favorite one-week fantasy football site.
After the play was over, unsportsmanlike conduct, number 13, offense, they're taunting.
Just got to know that, you know, it's all against me. It's going to be that way. I have to assume that I'm always in the wrong, no matter what. And that's something that's, you know, it's a tough pill to swallow, but you have to understand it. You have to be able to cope with it and, you know, just keep it moving.
Odell Beckham Jr. and the Giants hosting the Cowboys on Sunday night. Welcome back to Cowboys Insider inside the Academy Sports and Outdoors studios here at the Star in Frisco. And yes, well, if you are a Giants fan, he's got to be one of the most frustrating players on your team because he's got so much talent, and yet after virtually every play, something's going on with Odell Beckham Jr. Coach.
Well, he's talking to everybody. I mean, he's talking to the coach, the players, the fans, the officials. He's going to be involved in everything he does that way. And to be honest with you, I've seen improvement in him this year. I think he was worse a year ago, and I think McAdoo's kind of reined him in a little bit.
Yeah, physically, he can beat you. Mentally, he can beat himself. He gets too emotionally involved in every little play, every little block, every little push off by a defensive back. He just gets too emotionally involved. You just got to focus on the game. Here's a play, catch the ball and go.
When your talent becomes bigger than the team, you're going to run into an issue. And this kid needs to understand that you're in a playoff run, you want to be in the playoffs, and you don't want to hurt your team. You want to be that positive force. So he needs to change his thinking. You're not bigger than the team.
You know, one of the things with him is it seems like you play against a team like the Giants with a player like that. If you can get ahead of them and get them frustrated, that can really work to your advantage.
Yeah, but you know the thing that's interesting, you know, we say they have all these weapons, and I know Goose is big on this, and he watches all these guys. But in the first half of the game the other day against Pittsburgh, he had one target, and he had one catch, and they were shut out. In the second half, he had 15 targets, and he had 10 catches for 105 yards. So they have to get him involved, no question.
But how's that different from Dez? I mean, if Dez has one target and they're down at halftime, Dez is going to get the ball a dozen times in the second half. If you got an elite receiver, you're going to give him the ball when it matters.
It has to be quality. You know, just throwing him a bunch of balls to appease him and it don't help your team win. It's about winning. And he has to understand, you know, and thank God I had Tom Landry, Jimmy Johnson, and guys like that. Winning trumps all. And 800 targets don't mean anything.
All right, Eli Manning. What's the key to stopping Eli Manning and those receivers that he has?
Pressure.
Pressure.
He's got, like Dave said, he's got 3 quality receivers. If you let him stand back there, McAdoo's done a great job of getting him to make high percentage throws. If you let him stand back and throw, he will beat you. You have to press him because he gets wide eyes when he's under pressure, and that ball starts sailing on him.
When I was with the Jacksonville Jaguars back in close to his rookie year, I don't know if it was rookie year or the second year, we beat them 9-0 on Monday Night Football early in the season, and our guys came off the sideline and said, "Coach, this guy is scared." And he has gotten better, but he does not like pressure. He doesn't like anything close to him.
Wait a second. Jacksonville played on Monday Night Football at one point?
Absolutely, because of the Giants, not because of Jacksonville. Although we did go to the playoffs 2 out of the 3 years I was there.
It was all about you, Coach. It was all about you.
That's right, exactly. Me and Jack Del Rio, and he's proving it now.
That's exactly right, with the Oakland Raiders. All right, we continue here on Cowboys Insider. We talk Dak Prescott when we come back. And how about these road warriors, your Dallas Cowboys, 6-0 on the road this year. Last year, 3 of their 4 wins were on the road, and of course they were 8-0 in 2014.
This segment was brought to you by DraftKings. Play for free today at DraftKings.com, America's favorite one-week fantasy football site.
It's the 11-1 Cowboys against the 8-4 New York Football Giants. Cowboys with a sizable lead in the all-time series, but the Giants have won the last two meetings, including the season opener this year. Giants winning 20-19 back on September 11th. Cowboys winning 5 of the last 7 meetings. Welcome back to Cowboys Insider. Bill Jones, Nate Newton, Rick Goslin, and Coach Campo. And let's talk Dak Prescott a little bit here, and especially Dak and Dez. It's a combination that's working pretty well here of late. In fact, you look at Dez over the last 6 games. I think he's got 5 touchdowns in his last 6 games. It was evident last week against Minnesota. It's big when Dak and Dez are connecting as they are, Coach.
I keep saying Nate said this before.
Yes, sir. Way to go,
Coach. He is an outstanding analyst, really, because he understands the game and the people that play it. He said from day one that it was practice time with Dez, getting with Dak and being able to get that chemistry together, and it is huge. I think he's getting better and better. He's getting more comfortable getting the ball to him. And the one thing that Dez has done this year is Jason Garrett has convinced him that the team is the most important.
And if you run routes, and that's what we see in Dez do, they put him at different positions, and he's running routes. He's running crisp routes. Those routes helping him get separation. This kid sees him more clearly. He's hitting those tough windows, and Dez is coming up big. And that's the key thing, Rick.
Yeah, the thing about Dak, the last 2 games have been his worst games of the season. He's been under 200 yards, and I think the more he struggles, he's not been as accurate a passer as he'd been in the months of October and November. The more he struggles, I think the more he's going to look to Dez, because he knows Dez is the playmaker. You throw him the ball, he will catch it and make a play. And he's in a little bit of a slump right now. I think he's got to come out of that and get back to what he was doing in September and October.
You know, one of the big things, though, in that Vikings game, and as we're looking at some of the running ability that Dak obviously has, but early second quarter in that game, the Cowboys were struggling on offense. That 3rd and 13, 14-yard run to ignite that 84-yard drive was huge. He still, even when he's struggling throwing the football, he still has a presence about him, a poise about him that has been able to get the job done. So pretty remarkable.
You know how I feel about that. You know, as a coordinator, you know, calling defenses, that scares you more than anything else, is when you think you've done a great job coverage-wise, everything's solid, they're getting a little pressure on the guy, this is going to be our win, and all of a sudden he takes off and runs. And I don't think he runs just to run. You know, his eyes are down the field, but when when he feels like he's got to make a play, the kid has a presence of mind to make that play.
And I think one of the issues is, you know, he's still a 4th-round draft pick. He's still a rookie. He's seeing things he's never seen before. Defenses are getting more complicated for him. And I think the more he sees these things that are new to him, he's going to run more, and you're going to have plays like that.
All right, Cowboys Insider continues in a moment. These guys have their keys to a Cowboys victory coming up next.
Cowboys Insider, presented by Baylor Scott & White, was brought to you by AT&T, mobilizing your world. Rico's, make every game a home game with Rico's. And by Baylor Scott & White. It's easy to find the right doctor right now at BaylorScottandWhite.com.
Cowboys in a series of prime time games. Sunday Night Football this week against the Giants. And keep in mind that next week's game, home game against Tampa Bay, was flexed from a noon kickoff to a 7:30 start time. Then it's Monday Night Football the day after Christmas against the Detroit Lions and close out the season at the Philadelphia Eagles, a game the Cowboys hope doesn't matter whatsoever as far as the playoffs are concerned. Final couple of minutes here of Cowboys Insider inside the Academy Sports and Outdoor Studios, and that means it's time for the keys to the game. And let's start with Coach Campo.
Let me get up in my seat on this one. Well, now I'm off the picture. But Odell Beckham, okay? Anytime a team has a home run hitter, I get nervous as a coach. And they've got to get him involved. We've got to do a good job of taking him away in certain situations, but not allowing him to run after catch. That's going to be a big, big key in this football game. If they target him enough, he's going to make plays, and we've got to make sure we don't let him be big plays.
And when you go on the road, you got to play great defense. And what I believe is you have to get takeaways. Three things I believe in: a run game, defense, and good special teams. Our defense got 3 sacks last week. Add a couple of turnovers, and they can come out of New York flying high.
Yeah, the Cowboys had the best offensive line in the NFL, but in the opener, that was not the best offensive line of football. It wasn't even the best line on the field. The Giants' defensive line dominated the Cowboys' blocking front. That can't happen again. The Cowboys' offensive line has to avenge that opener.
All right, this new era of Cowboys, this could be a huge game on Sunday night. They could clinch the division. I remember back your era, Nate and
Yes,
Coach, that game in Philadelphia where you won the division in the early 90s in that locker room. What's that feeling like when you clinch a division for the first time in your career?
Well, I hope with Jason Garrett that he don't go with the process. I hope he let the guys get loose, have some fun. You know, going back on the plane, Jimmy told me I could take off my shirt, and Kevin O'Neal stopped me.
Thank God for Kevin O'Neal.
I want to get
that would have been dangerous, I think.
But it can be such a huge night. And if things fall in place otherwise around the league with Seattle and Detroit, unlikely in Detroit's case, they could clinch everything.
Well, you remember the one year that we were on the plane headed out to play in Arizona.
Arizona, that's right.
Before one of the Super Bowl years, I think it was '95, we found out that we had home field advantage on the plane on the way out there. Everybody was quiet and this and that, and all of a sudden the plane erupted when we found out that
got them motivated and they won the Super Bowl this year.
Dancing up and down the aisles, man.
All right, that does it for Cowboys Insider. For Coach Goose and Nate, I'm Bill, and we will see you again next week. Enjoy the game on Sunday night against the New York Giants. Cowboys Insider returns a week from now.
Go Cowboys.